Okay, so for chapter 13 homework example, I'm going to walk through the illustrative problem. On page 545, I have the data already entered in for this problem, so we can get started. So first, determine the quantity variance, price variance, and total direct materials cost variance. Okay, so these are all going to be material variances. So we want the quantity, we want the price, and we want total. Okay, so the quantity variance is going to be our actual quantity less our standard quantity multiplied by our standard rate. Okay, so this homework example and pretty much everything in this chapter, the terminology is all really close, so terminology is important here. So our actual cost, actual quantity, minus our standard quantity multiplied by our standard rate. Okay, that gives us a $3,500 variance, and we need to know whether this is a favorable or an unfavorable variance. So our rate stays the same, so that doesn't impact whether it's favorable or unfavorable. But what does impact is our quantity. So we had a higher actual quantity than what we had planned on, and that's what's created our variance. So this variance is unfavorable. So usually when I do this, I use absolute values. I'm not going to do that now, but just keep in mind that just because this is positive doesn't make it favorable, or just because it's positive doesn't make it unfavorable. It depends on the variance and why you have that value, whether it's favorable or unfavorable. Okay, so our price variance is going to be our actual rate here less our standard rate. We're going to multiply that by our actual quantity, and this gives us our price variance. So our price variance is $4,800. This is negative. So we need to figure out if this is a favorable or unfavorable variance. Okay, so in this case, our quantity doesn't matter for our variance. So the only thing that matters is our rate. And our actual rate was less than our standard rate. So this variance is a favorable variance. Okay, and then our total materials variance is just the total of both of those, which is $1,300. And our favorable variance is 4,800, and our unfavorable variance is 3,500. So this is a $1,300 favorable variance. Even though it's negative, it's still a favorable variance. Okay, second part, determine time, rate, and total direct labor cost variance. So we have time, rate, and total direct labor. Okay. So our time variance is going to be our actual hours less our standard hours multiplied by our standard rate. Oh, whoops. Forgot to do the multiply part. Okay, so there is our time variance. Now, let's look at this again. So in this problem, we're using our standard rate, our actual rate, our standard hours, actual hours, and our standard rate. So the standard rate doesn't make a difference. So in determining favorable or unfavorable, we just need to look at standard cost and actual cost. And our actual cost is less than our standard cost hours. So this is going to be a favorable variance. Okay, our rate variance is going to be our actual rate minus our standard rate multiplied by our actual quantity. Rate variance is a little bit different than a price variance, so keep that in mind. It's not all the same. Okay, and so determining whether that's favorable or unfavorable, we have our 2 rates and we have our 1 hour. And so the only thing that matters to us is the rate, and our actual rate is higher than our standard rate. So this is an unfavorable variance. And our total labor variance is just going to be the total of both of those. We have $300, and our unfavorable variances are larger than our favorable variances. So this is a total unfavorable balance. Variance, not balance. Okay, last one. We want controllable, we want volume, and we want total factory overhead. Okay, so our controllable variance is going to be our actual cost in variable overhead minus our standard cost hours multiplied by our variable rate. Now, probably a mistake that happens a lot is you would use this 5,500 as our standard hours, but our standard hours are 4,800. This 5,500 hours is our 100% of capacity. And since we didn't plan on operating at 100% of capacity, we planned on operating at 4,800 hours instead of 5,500. That's the rate we're going to use, okay? So it is our 4,800 hours multiplied by our variable cost. I have an extra parenthesis in there. So let's get rid of that. And we have a $780 variance. So this variance is, we took our actual cost less our standard cost and came up with a positive number. So that means our actual cost was more. So this is an unfavorable variance. Okay. Our volume variance is going to be our 100% of our plan. So our factory overhead, that rate is based off of our total number of hours. So we're going to take our total hours less our planned hours multiplied by our fixed rate. And for some reason, that seems wrong. That seems really high. What did I do? Oh, this is what I did. Okay. So we need to get our difference multiplied by our rate, not our hours subtracted times hours and total cost. Okay. So our volume variance, deciding whether it's favorable or unfavorable. So we took our difference in hours, which is our 100% capacity less our operating level times our fixed rate. And so because our operating level is less than our 100% capacity, this is an unfavorable variance as well. Then we just add those two together to get our total variance, and in this case they're both unfavorable, so this one will also be unfavorable. Okay, as always, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out and I can help you through email.